This is something that Dead Space and other horror games did that I really liked. They had a lot of pass-through rooms that essentially cooled down the player. These small rooms have nothing in them, but serve as cooldowns for the player after intense moments. The game can't be full tension all the time. I feel like the player would get numb to it. They might even get frustrated by the constant anxiety. So small breaks between the action is, in my opinion, very necessary. These can also serve as separators of different areas. Instead of just going from A to B, it's going through a quick breather or a palate cleanser, and then going through B. It's empty space, but it serves a purpose. So you see an enemy pop out in front of you from a vent. You can now recognize that's something that will happen to you at any possible time, and that also sets something up for later that I can use. So I like this sequence right here because I think it throws the player off in multiple ways. When they walk out of the door and look to their right, they see the vent with orange lighting in front of them. Now, every time an enemy is attacked, it's been from the front, and it's been from a vent. So they're going to be staring at that vent, waiting for the enemy to pop out as they walk up. When they reach a certain point, however, they hear a loud bang from the right unexpectedly. They'll look and see the enemy behind the door, providing a nice little jump scare and throwing them off a little bit more. Then they'll go back to walking towards the elevator while keeping an eye on both the vent and the door. That's when they'll hear the busting of a vent and a scream. They'll be initially thrown off because it wasn't the glaringly obvious vent in front of them, so they'll look at the door assuming the enemy is broken out. But it's still there, which will throw them off even more, because I'm betting that they didn't notice the vent directly over the door by the long hallway. This also tells the player to expect an enemy coming from anywhere, and I really think it's a scary sight of seeing an enemy run towards you from out of the darkness. Just some more environmental storytelling to add to the atmosphere. Like I said earlier, how Dead Space and other horror games set up their enemy introductions was a big inspiration to this game, and this is where the main boss's prototype makes its debut. It starts here with hearing it from beyond the crates, and then boom, the container falls, raising the tension and putting the player on edge. And then we have a nice little jump scare, which is taking advantage of said tension. While you can easily beat the enemy that pops out, you know there's something else out there more menacing you're going to meet soon. After that, you come to an open area where fighting obviously occurred. Through this game so far, you've only fought in compact hallways, so when the player walks through here, they become nervous about maybe a potential boss fight. Okay, so now that you killed the monster attacking the clone, you think it's safe and you're going to bring him to the base. You also received the thermal charge you needed, so you think you've completed the side quest and you're ready to go back to blow up the blockage. You think things are looking up for you, but this is actually how I set up the final boss of this prototype, to show the player what it can do and how much of a threat the boss is. It's an acid-spitting enemy and it's very powerful. So once you finish the sequence and walk out the door, you'll see the thermal charge has been added to your inventory. You'll then see the monster jump down in the cargo area, and you'll see the music change. You know now it's time for a boss fight. You get to walk on the elevator and slowly go down it like a gladiator entering the arena. In a fully realized game, I would have the spitter just jump from crate to crate, but due to animation limitations, that wasn't going to be possible in this feasible time frame. But the player needs to know that he's teleporting. So what happens is the player sees the green ring around the stomach area, and then they teleport. That's the sign, that's the signal. I don't want the player to automatically know where the boss will teleport, just to add some more challenge, but they'll figure it out when they see it only teleport to 3 locations. So this is the sequence of the boss fight. You deal with just the boss, getting familiar with his patterns and attacks, After a short amount of time, 2 enemies will appear to add challenge to the fight. You don't know where the boss is while you're fighting these enemies, so you've got to dispatch them quick. Also, if you notice, when you zoom, you're very slow and can't really dodge the acid. But if you're walking or running, you can't shoot. The movement being clunky here is intentional and inspired by Dead Space and Resident Evil 4. Both games use clunky movement to add panic to the player. When enemies are attacking you, and your character is not responding as fast as you would like it to, and you can't just run and gun your way through the level, instead you have to slowly aim and kill an enemy when you know there's another one coming at you from any direction. All that adds panic, anxiety, and fear in the player. You might have also noticed that when moving while you're aiming, the blaster's accuracy is way down. This is present throughout the game, is because the character is still a basic infantry clone, and I want the player to fully immerse themselves with that. While the character will be able to upgrade throughout the game, if it's just coming out of the gate hitting bullseyes on the run, the immersion the player feels as a no-name clone will suffer, as that now feels more like Chosen One territory. But moving on, once the player has killed the boss, they receive the plasma torch and are ready to head back to the base and talk to the engineer. Another influence from Dead Space, among many others, is the backtracking. I absolutely do not view backtracking as a negative thing. I view it as a more realistic and logical way of approaching the level design of something like a spaceship. As long as it's not tedious, there is so much you can do to keep the atmosphere, exploration, and scares fresh for the player. I think it empowers the player to explore and not have their hand held from point A to point B. Players can also find previously closed off areas have now been unlocked when they revisit. I think backtracking helps with immersion because it's realistic. In a large ship like this one, a big part of the game is to be figuring your way out. Especially when you add obstacles like debris blockage, broken stairs, power outages, and of course enemies at every turn. Speaking of enemies, when you have new ones pop out at you in a previously visited area, that puts the player on edge no matter where they are. It doesn't matter if you cleared the area before, enemies can get you at any time. And I think that not only keeps the backtracking from being tedious, but also prevents those dull transitioning moments some games go through where a player is bored while walking from an area they cleared to the next one. So I feel that as long as it's rewarding and serves a purpose, backtracking is a great way to make an efficient and fun level. This enemy encounter is a demonstration of not only the backtracking I just talked about, but also building on concept and pattern. When the player first went through this hallway earlier, they had an enemy pop out from the front. Let's call that concept A. Then right after that, they had an enemy attack from behind. Let's call that concept B. The players know now that each of those concepts can come at them at any time. So for this encounter, I put them both together to make concept AB, and I can build off this pattern in new and fun ways throughout the game. For example, I can have an enemy coming out of the ground, calling it concept C, and then I can throw more combinations at them like AC, ABC, and because I showed the concepts before, they won't feel like it's unfair. So from now on, anytime an enemy pops out in front of them, they'll have that panic in the back of their mind that maybe another enemy could be coming right behind them. These little things add to the horror of the game, as well as let me as a level designer experiment with and throw new combinations at the player without having to use a cutscene. So you've just finished the first main quest and given the plasma torch to the engineer. So now start sealing the doors and vents. From this point on, you can talk to him about building any of the upgrades and fortifications to the base, with the first thing being the beds to house more rescued clones. This is the clone you rescued from the blind monster. He's now at your base and willing to help. He just needs to get patched up better than first aid kits could achieve. So now your new optional side task is to gather the resources needed to have a med bay built. Once you do that, then you can send him on missions. After that, of course, you have the option to continue on from there with the base building aspect of the game while you progress through the main story. This wouldn't happen in the actual game. I just thought it'd be a fun way to end the prototype, as well as show you what the blind monster can do since we went through the stealth route. So that's my prototype. I hope this video added some clarity to the choices I made and why I made them. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I truly appreciate it.